Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers, including Peter Berryman, John Robertson, Brandon Trano, and IndyCar World Champion Alex Palou. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're watching from. Thank you so much for joining us here on Apex Racing TV for another round of the Colorado Karting Tour iRacing Winter Series. We're here live from the beautiful virtual Virginia International Raceway for round 6 into the closing stages of the season for the Colorado Karting Tour iRacing Winter Series, and we are also in the closing stages of qualifying. Just a few drivers left on track, and qualifying will wrap up here in just a moment. And we will be headed towards the final, if I'm not mistaken, the final sprint races of the season, with just one endurance event remaining on the calendar, I believe. So we've got a 15-minute heat and a 30-minute feature coming your way, as is always the case. And I am joined in the booth, as always, by Tim Cox. Tim, how you doing?
I'm good, and really looking forward to this one. We've got the Aston Martin, brand new to iRacing, out on track, and going to be really intrigued to see how they get on and listening to that lovely V8 sound that the Aston has.
Yes, we are for sure looking forward to that. And it looks like they're lining up on the start line, so we're going to have a nice long pace lap to get through the whole grid for you. But let's get started. It is last time out's double runner-up Bruce Lukens who grabs the pole position from double race winner last time, Lawrence Zavadil. And of course, Lawrence is your points leader as well. Lining up in third will be the man who finished third in both races last time out. That's Ezra Kelderman, ahead of Ryan McLaughlin, who we believe is a new driver to the series. Then it'll be Floyd Kerr rolling off fifth. A good qualifying effort from Floyd. Rob Hubrex will start sixth. Kenny Schmid lines up seventh. Mark Malsum in eighth. Brian Bruzzi ninth. Michael Keltner, another driver in towards the front end of the championship fight will roll off in 10th. Then it's Michael Herring and Zach Peterson behind them. In 13th will be Mike James ahead of Armand Gavorkian. Then it'll be Aaron Botnick and Rob Holubar. Mark Sherman in 17th, Ben Jolly in 18th, and Danny Lopez, who didn't set a qualifying time, will round out the field in 19th. So lots to talk about here. Tim, you alluded to it. There was an iRacing build update, which they do quarterly. So introduced a new car to the GT4 field. That is the Aston Martin. You can see one of them up there towards the front. I think that's Floyd Kerr, who is the first non-McLaren, which is another point to mention. With the new build, of course, comes new balance of performance tweaks as well, and we've seen several drivers change over to the McLaren, including points leader Lawrence Zavadil, who rolls off in second. Now, it's worth mentioning that Lawrence did try out or he told us in his interview, he tried out the McLaren last time out at Barber along with his teammate Bruce Lukens there, and just didn't feel like he had the practice time to switch to it then. But clearly, Tim, Lawrence a fan of this McLaren and how it drives.
Yeah, it's definitely the popular choice at the sharp end of the grid, with our top 5 being made up of McLarens. And as for Porsche, well, 7th place, Kenny Schmid, he is the highest of the Porsche runners, as you mentioned, Floyd Kerr, highest of the new Aston runners as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Aston, fares, as you mentioned. The changes to the quarterly updates, it always comes with iRacing, brings, changes to the balance of performance, the BOP. And what with a new car in there for extra spice to the mix? I mean, obviously, still nobody favouring the BMW M4 and opting to go for that one. I mean, that just shows you what sort of state that car's in right now. But I think for me as well, it's going to be really interesting to see the corner just that they've come out of turn 12, Oak Tree, how the drivers get on with getting the power down, getting out of that corner, because it's so crucial. As we just watch this onboard shot right now with Mike James as you look up the hill, because it's all about that long run up the hill to turn 13 and then through roller coaster 14 and 15, where you can get a move done. But it all comes down to how good an exit you get out of turn 12, Oak Tree.
Yeah, you mentioned it. One of the longest straights these drivers will face this season. But it doesn't necessarily lead to one of the best passing zones as you might think. Really, the place you want to get your passes done around here is probably going to be turn 1, the horseshoe. Roller coaster, because there's that juke to the left that they've just gone through before you turn down to the right. And then it's this winding right, left, right section. It's not easy to really make a pass stick through here despite the long straight. So if you can't clear somebody by the time you get to the end of the straight, it's going to be a tall order to get by down through roller coaster, as you mentioned. But the field heading up through Hog Pen now, the final corner that leads onto the start finish straight here at VIR. It's a tricky track. We'll definitely talk more about it as the race gets underway, but for now, the field in the hand of Bruce Lukens as he has taken off. I think we just saw him disappearing down the road. Indeed, he's cleared Lawrence Zavadil on the way into turn 1. It's not a straight line braking zone for turn 1. It can be awful tricky, and it's an unforgiving track. We were talking before we went on the air. It is very easy to find yourself way off in the grass and lose a number of positions, but so far so good. It looks like everybody's gotten through cleanly here, Tim.
It does indeed, and Floyd making up a place already to get the Aston Martin up into 4th. Likewise, Kenny Schmid, he's up 2 places in the Porsche into 5th. Biggest losers in terms of positions lost on the opening laps. McLaughlin in 6th place down 2, and likewise Rob Hubrex in the McLaren down 2 places as well into 8th.
Yeah, it's a tricky start for sure, and a big braking zone into Hog Pen as we saw, but everyone going through cleanly is great to see. It really is a tricky track around here. It's been called the Little Green Hell in reference to the Nürburgring, of course. Certainly quite a bit smaller, but it does give very similar vibes in a number of sections to the famous track in Germany. But everyone filing through single file for the most part as they head down the main straight here out of Oak Tree. We're looking at this battle here between Michael Herring, Armand Gevorkian, Mike James. It looks like Armand's got the run here on Herring, and he's where you want to be on that left side into the braking zone as they head down into roller coaster, and he's already got that pass done. So that's exactly what we were saying on the pace laps there, Tim. You've got to be sure that you're clear by roller coaster, otherwise you stand to lose a lot of time going side by side through here.
Yes, you do indeed. You're not wrong there whatsoever. However, you know, obviously these being racing drivers, you know, it's all about the positions gained, you know, getting one over the drivers in front of you, and I think it's going to be interesting. Of course, 15 minutes sprint race for the first race of 2 today, and drivers don't have a lot of time to get that moved up. Well, they have 15 minutes to be precise, of which we've only got just under 13 left, and definitely invokes passes maybe where drivers may, you know, as you mentioned, when we have the more endurance style races, more coming up later in the season, where you have time to maybe pick your passes and go for something that's a bit more certain and safe and secure, compared to these, you know, frantic races that invoke, you know, maybe a bit more braver overtaking opportunities than you normally expect.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, Tim. It is a long lap around here, over 2 minutes, or just under in the case of the quickest drivers here on that first lap. Obviously, the next few will be coming in under 2 minutes, but still, you're only going to see 7 or 8 laps around here in this 15-minute race. That's not a lot of time to get something done. And as we said, there's really only a couple or 3 good passing zones on the track. Here into Oak Tree, you can maybe get something done. Same into the roller coaster, but really turn 1 is your best bet. So you spend that whole lap trying to set up a maneuver into turn 1, and if you don't get it done, you're running out of opportunities very quickly. Here, though, we see an attempted pass from Brian Brutzi on Ryan McLaughlin, and he gets that done. And they head down the diving, twisting turns of roller coaster here. It really is a tremendous track in terms of elevation changes, and you'll often see cars lifting their right side tires off the ground there as they head downhill. It is quite treacherous, but it's a lot of fun in any car. Oh, as we see the first victim to the very slippery off-track grass, that's Armand Gevorkian, just trying to get a handle on it here and doing a good job of not re-entering the track in anyone's way. And that's the exit of Hogpen, where it can really take you out to the edge of the track, and Armand, I think, was aware of that. Didn't want to risk getting run into there. We got a replay here of what happened to him.
He was
absolutely surprised. Yeah, if it's all on his own. I was about to say, it's an easy section to carry too much speed. We were just talking about it. And once you get on that grass, there's no coming back quickly.
It was gutted for Gevorkian because he lost 5 places after what was a good start by him, and one of the top running Porsches for the incident, so absolutely gutted for him. And now finds himself down in 18th, down 4 places from where he started. As we've got another player potentially. Let's see, we should see what happens. And we'll just mention, well, look at that. We had Lucan setting the fastest lap of the race last time around.
We did indeed here. Looking at the race leader, Bruce Lukens. Heading down into turn 10 and then into the Oak Tree here. Of course, the iRacing track scanned before the unfortunate lightning strike took the Oak Tree out of Oak Tree Corner. You won't see it there in real life anymore, but still lives on in iRacing.
I mean, I'm glad it still lives on within iRacing, because it's what makes the corner, you know, gave it its name, but it just has that nice, you know, picturesque, and obviously, you know, it's very much like a setting within the country club, this track, and it gives it that feel to it as well. It's all part of the spectacle, and you know, one of its products, one of its unique selling points, as it were.
It certainly is. It wouldn't wouldn't pass modern safety standards, I don't
No.
think, but it's one of those things when you've got a kind of iconic feature of a track, uh, you make do, and you know they're not trying to lure Formula One into the hills of Virginia, I don't think. So it was all right while it was there, but now that it's gone, they've relocated the saplings from the tree to an area off the track where they won't be in danger of any wayward GT4 cars. We continue to watch the race leader here, as we're just having some issues with our overlay. Not sure what you folks are seeing on your end, but bear with us. We've still got some great racing going on. But hopefully we've got that working for you. And anyway, it's quite a storming effort from Lukens up front. He's, you know, Zavadil has kind of been the dominant force in this championship, aside from his early battles with Mark McCormick, who we haven't seen the last couple of rounds. But Bruce Lukens has been storming away from him. You mentioned he set the quickest lap last time around, and doesn't seem to be letting up here as we carry on.
Just seeing McLaughlin here. It's a bit of a battle here, really. He's got Hubrex just behind him in McLaren, and Brian Bruzy in front of him. However, they're not far off the Porsche of Kenny Schmid as well, and a four-car train emerging here. And this is where, you know, it could get interesting. You know, we're just over halfway through race one, and as you were saying rightly earlier, Tyler, it's a long lap here. Obviously, with limited opportunities, you know, about 3 overtaking opportunities, which realistically only one of those, you know, as you mentioned, the run into turn 1 is the most solid of them all. And combined with that long lap, it gives you even less potential opportunities to overtake. And I think if, you know, any of these drivers are looking to make some progress, then they need to start thinking about these moves sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. Quickly running out of time here as we see Kenny Schmid leading a train of cars here. That's Brian Bruzy first behind him in the McLaren, and a couple of other McLarens of McLaughlin and Hubrex here heading into Oak Tree once again. Not too many more times they're going to have a chance here. Looked like Bruzy got a little on the exit curbing there, but he's pushing hard. He clearly wants to get by Kenny Schmid here. We'll see if he's able to get the run. The McLaren's usually quite strong in a straight line, but it looks like that run out might have hurt Brian, because he's not able just to quite get the run up to Kenny. No, it was the brake markers for the start of the South course there that threw me off, but still, Brian not able to get the run quite yet on Kenny Schmid. But as we keep saying, time is limited here, and Brian needs to make something happen sooner rather than later, as they head down through Hogpen and back onto the start-finish straight.
Interesting one for you. Obviously, this dominance we're seeing from the McLarens here at VIR. Having said that, fastest lap of the race so far, it was last time around. It went to Floyd Kerr in the Aston, as Keltner going very slowly there.
Yeah, not sure. A bit of an interesting place to spin there for Michael Keltner, who, as we said, currently sits, I believe, 3rd in the championship, but he's been quite steady all season long, but finally, unfortunately for him, quite late in the season, having a bit of a poor showing here. But yeah, some spin there, heading onto the start-finish straight. Drops him back down to 14th position. We ride on board with Brian Bruzy now, looking at Kenny Schmid up ahead. There's just nowhere to go through here in this tight left, right, left section as they work their way toward Oak Tree once again. Is he going to be close enough to try and think about sticking it up the inside into Oak Tree, or does he just want to set up the run onto the main straight? He's quite close, but not making a pass happen here. He's kept it tighter there and not run wide. That's important. That run onto the curbing hurt him last time, but now he might have a chance here to get Kenny Schmid at the end of the straight.
Say that it was all all important. And for Brucey, well, here he comes. Looks like we could have a move done here. Wow, spectacular fashion around the outside there, Tyler. I mean, that's one way to get yourself ahead of Schmid. Around the outside, into the roller coaster. I'll take my imaginary hat off to Brian Brucey right now.
Great move indeed by Brian, and he's clearly pulling away here. Got just a little bit of pace in the bag over Kenny Schmid there. Bruce Lukens out in front has got pace in the bag over everybody. Nobody has been able to touch what Lukens has been doing today. Oh, we've had some trouble somewhere out on track. Maybe. I just saw a number of drivers dropping quickly, but I think it was a number of passes happening at the same time. Here we see McLaughlin and Hubrex, and I think they traded places in turn one. But they're both still going, so not sure what I was seeing there. Clearly everybody still on track in this group. As we are winding down the time, I think it's going to be 2 more laps, including the one everybody's on. So not much yet to go in this race. This is certainly the most hotly contested positions on track. And as much as Brucey got by Schmid quite effectively, he hasn't really been able to scamper away. Kenny keeping him honest here in the Porsche. We'll see if Brian is able to pull a bit of a gap on the main straight with that McLaren straight line speed, or if Kenny can close that back down a little bit.
I think the interesting one for me is Rob Hubrex, because I've just been keeping half an eye on him, Tyler, and he's been closing up onto the back of the Porsche of Schmid, and I don't think he's certainly not going to get it done this lap, but I think it's going to be interesting coming on to the final lap. Clearly some confidence and momentum instilled from where he got past McLaughlin, and I've got my money on Hubrex getting past Schmid on the next lap.
Well, he'll have to, because it's his remaining opportunity here, as we are going to take the white flag, or rather the leaders are going to take the white flag this time through, if I'm not mistaken. And Lukens will head through Horseshoe for the final time. But yeah, that battle between Schmid and Hubrex, definitely the closest that we're seeing on track. Though I have to say, Kelderman is doing quite a good job of keeping with Lawrence Zavidil, and those are the top 2 in points. Kelderman came into the day 10 points behind Lawrence Zavidil, so this will be a good effort for Ezra to try and keep Lawrence in check. We know he's got tremendous pace. As we see the battle, it's Kenny Schmid and Brian Brucey who are going together. What's happened to Brian Brucey? He was clear of this battle, but suddenly Kenny Schmid has gotten through. Brucey's off the track, and Hubrex and McLaughlin have taken advantage as well.
I think this could give Schmid just the opportunity he needed, because Hubrex was right all over the back end of him. However, with Brucey off track, it just clearly distracted Hubrex enough to allow Schmid just to pull that just extra couple of attempts away from Hubrex, and I think this could be the buffer that he needs as they come around Oak Tree and head out down the back straight to keep hold of that, well, what was his existing position, but has now climbed up to 5th, with Brucey being demoted after heading off track.
Yeah, big change here on the last lap of the race. I was just mentioning again, Lawrence Zavidil and Ezra Kelderman came into the day 10 points apart at the top of the point standing. So we know Lawrence is quick. Ezra Kelderman doing what he can here and hanging tight. But it's all Bruce Lukens today, as he will take the heat race victory from the pole position and set himself up for another go at it in the feature race. We'll see if he can double up as Lawrence Zavidil did last time around. But in this battle, it's going to be Kenny Schmid who prevails, I believe. Hubrex was getting a tow, but I don't think he's going to be able to pull out and pass in time. Brian Brucey, after running as high as 5th, starting the final lap, ends up in 8th position. Won't be too happy about that.
Won't be indeed, and see the last of the drivers across the line. I mean, a great outing for the Aston Martin in the championship, 4th with Floyd Kerr. of course, Schmid getting the Porsche up inside the top 5. So we've got all 3 different manufacturers inside the top 5. And not quite the McLaren whitewash and dominance that I think maybe some, quite a few people might have been expecting it, looking at how they first started out the race.
Yes, indeed. Now just a few drivers to cross the line. Arman Gevorkian grabs 17th place. And then Malsum and Jolly are actually battling on track because I just saw Malsum go past. There they are. So even 18th and 19th place, we've still got a battle going on here. A couple of recovering drivers from incidents, but Mark Malsum has taken that position and looks to be running with it here in the closing stages of this race.
Yeah, great move from Malsum there to get past Jolly. Say on the recovery, and Carlos finished ahead of them, already taking the check by Gevorkian. I mean, absolutely good for him. He had really strong pace early on, of course. That he ran wide coming out of the final corner, just putting paid to that, and wasn't able to quite recover. However, the beauty of having 2 races at one event is not all over. We've still got the 30-minute sprint race, sorry, feature race to come.
One more race to come, but for race 1, it is Bruce Lukens who takes the race win ahead of Lawrence Zavadil and Ezra Kelderman. A very familiar podium to those of you who watched the last round at Barber Motorsports Park. Same 3 drivers, just swap the top 2. Then it's Floyd Kerr in 4th, Kenny Schmid in 5th, Rob Hubrechts in 6th, Ryan McLaughlin in 7th, Brian Bruzzi in 8th, Mike James 9th, Michael Herring rounds out the top 10. Then it's Zach Peterson, Michael Keltner, Aaron Botnick, Rob Holubar, Danny Lopez, Mark Sherman, Arman Gevorkian, Mark Malsum, and Ben Jolly round out the field. But as we keep saying, there's still another race to come here, a half-hour feature race, as these drivers get a brief warm-up period to figure out how much the track has changed, if at all, between the races. There's Lawrence Zavadil, clearly not content with 2nd place, putting in those laps to find the pace to maybe grab a win here in the feature, Tim.
He will be indeed, and as you mentioned earlier, I mean, it is a long lap here, and it was, I mean, I do believe it was Carroll Shelby who said after his first, well, he won the first ever race here in, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was a Maserati, but I'm probably going to butcher his quote now, but he said it was something along the lines of, 1 lap around VIR is the equivalent of about 100 laps around Watkins. And I mean, like you say, it's built the name as the little green howl, obviously in lieu of, oh wow, big accident out on track there. Good job it's during the warm-up session, so it doesn't count towards anything. Last thing our drivers would wanted, but yeah, as you say, it has enveloped the name of Little Green Howl in lieu of the Nordschleife, and it does there are a lot of similarities, of course, from a shorter track. However, the way that it moves around the landscape, and it's fast, it's flowing. It really is like a miniature Nordschleife in North America.
It is. It's one of those interesting stories where and I hope I'm not mixing up track history stories here, but if I remember correctly, the track layout was designed by somebody just driving around with a tractor and following the flow of the landscape, and they drove around and thought that's good, and then they paved it, and that was VIR, and it certainly there are some great racetracks that have been designed recently, but there's just something great about putting a strip of pavement on kind of some rolling hills in a natural landscape, and just seeing what comes of it, and it really is, for any of you who have iRacing or have been lucky enough to drive it in the real world, it's a tremendous amount of fun to drive, and really, they call the section in the back half roller coaster, but you could call the whole track a roller coaster because it feels like it all the way through.
Yeah, it's a track that obviously it's very little known within Europe, and it's a bit of a shame really because it's one of those tracks which it's great fun just to get in and absolutely drive, and there, whatever car it may be, I covered a Formula 3 race here recently. We've seen obviously the GT4s, they're well suited. Even Smink, I tell you what, it's absolutely brilliant around here because I did test it out after driving for the first time. Lotus 79, all that mechanical grip, great fun around here, really similar to that. It is like just like an old school Formula 1 style track in the way it reacts. Of course, as we know, Lotus 79s used to run around the Nordschleife, and it is obviously very similar style track, and it just works on so many levels. I mean, yes, it is a bit tricky to get your overtaking moves done, but it is such a fun track to just get in, even if you just fancy going out for a bit of a drive in whatever your choice of car may be.
Absolutely. Just getting to the closing stages of warm-up here, but we've mentioned the season getting close to wrapping up, and of course, some great prizes on offer for these drivers, or specifically the drivers who are not already a part of the Colorado Karting Tour, which a number of these drivers are. We had Eric Gunderson from Point Karting in with us last time, reminding us of some of the awesome prizes they've got. One of these drivers will win a full race day with Point Karting, and several others will win various other prizes, including testing of karts. So really exciting prizes that these drivers are racing for. And Lawrence Zavadil's in the driver's seat, but it is far from over for sure. So we'll be definitely keeping track of how that shapes up. But for now, we've got the grid for race 2 lining up. Bruce Lukens will start on the pole as he finished. This order will look familiar to you if you heard the results of the last race, but he's followed by Lawrence Zavadil and Ezra Kelderman, with Floyd Kerr starting 4th, Kenny Schmid in 5th, and Rob Hubrecht 6th. On the 4th row, it's Ryan McLaughlin and Brian Bruzzi, followed by Mike James and Michael Herring. The 6th row will be Zach Peterson and Michael Keltner. Behind them is Aaron Botnick and Rob Polivar, and Danny Lopez and Mark Sherman. Armand Gevorkian, Mark Mawson, and Ben Jolly will round out the field.
So we head out now. It's going to be interesting, a bit of a reset, time to go again, and those opening stages are just going to be so crucial once again. I expect to see the drivers following each other a lot more closely on the final stages of the formation lap, because with passing being so challenging around VIR, getting that jump at the start where you can potentially make up a couple of places is going to be so crucial. And it's always the case within, especially at tracks like this, but where you qualify and where you start tends to be where you end up racing. So making up those places in those early stages while the pack is still very much compacted together, it's going to be so crucial.
You're absolutely right there, Tim. And just want to take a minute to remind you folks, if you're used to tuning in and following the Colorado Karting Tour, you might be expecting the next race in the last round to be 2 weeks from now, but it is not. It is next week. So if you're watching this and you want to tune in for the finale from Sebring, make sure you tune in next week at this time, not 2 weeks from now. We will wrap up the championship and see who's going to claim those awesome prizes. But just a heads up for those of you who may be trying to guess when the next race would be, no need to guess, it is next week. But we've got one more race here from VIR before we head to Sebring. And the driver's heading through Oak Tree now on this long pace lap, led by Bruce Lukens, as we saw in race number 1. And Tim, he kind of pulled that kind of 2.5-ish second gap and really maintained it for much of the race, which, makes me think, was Zavadil, kind of pacing himself, biding his time? Does he have pace in the pocket? Or could the same be said for Lukens? Was Lukens biding his pace and managing the gap? And it'll be interesting to see over this 30-minute race, double the distance of race number 1, can anyone have anything for Bruce Lukens.
It's going to be really, really interesting. I mean, you see that it's the usual protagonists near the front. I mean, Zavadil and Kelderman. It's going to be so crucial for what sort of start they can get. Lukens is just going to be desperate that those two end up side by side and start fighting one another so they can pull away, get that gap, and then, I mean, you know what it's like. Once you've got that gap extended out, you can then, you know, relax a little bit, take, you know, you're not pushing the car to the max, take the more, you know, regular lines, and so after you've ended up finding you're being quicker, and it's going to be interesting, but we've not got a long fight to find out at all as they come around the final corner.
Yes, indeed. We're going to see the pace car pull off here in a minute as they head past the start of the pit lane. Eyes on Bruce Lukens, and he gets another good jump. Catches Lawrence Zavadil napping for the second time today, although it's a decent chance these two are in a chat with each other as teammates. We know they practice together. They may well be communicating in this race and planning that start out. But right now it's Bruce Lukens out front, and a good run there from Kelderman to get the jump on Floyd Kerr as they head through the horseshoe turn 1.
Yeah, I was hoping maybe it's just for that, you know, obviously with the Aston being brand new and watching him run around the outside of Kelderman, Kerr just wasn't quite able to hang it out there, and in the end had to back in and settle for 4th place. Rex had a good start. He's managed to get past Kenny Schmid in the highest of the Porsche runners. Rex now up to 5th, and likewise Brucey making a place over McLaughlin and Keltner, and he's a place Uber and Vorkian as well, all gaining 1 place so far in the first half of the opening lap of race 2.
Yeah, of course, we saw Rob Hubrex trying to get by Kenny Schmid for much of the closing part of the previous race, but now he's done it off the jump here in race number 2. So good start from Rob. Oh, there's a spin. That's Mike James in the Aston Martin, who's gone around out of Oak Tree. Easily done. You just step on the power a little bit too hard. Doesn't look like he got the grass. He kept it pretty tight, but yeah, easy to have one of those spins, especially on cold tires if you weren't warming them on the warm-up lap. I did drive a few laps in the Aston Martin and felt like it was quite sketchy on cold tires, so I can't say I can fault Mike James there. That's pretty tricky in my limited experience. But as they head now downhill through Hog Pen, it is Bruce Lukens from Lawrence Zavadil from Ezra Kelderman, as it was in race number 1, but Lukens not really getting away here. Zavadil doing a good job to keep him close, and clearly he knows what sort of pace he's got. He'll be trying to make sure he can stay within towing range and see if he can get a pass done.
Just seeing, I mean, Zavadil, that is a lot closer in these earlier stages. Lukens not having it all his own way, and for me it's going to be interesting to see what sort of tactics Zavadil plays out here. Of course, as you were mentioning earlier, these two teammates, and whether Zavadil goes early and gets ahead of Lukens when he sees an opportunity, or just bides his time and waits to the latter stages of the race, and those two start to work together to pull away from Kelderman even more. I mean, only half a second between Zavadil and Kelderman, and just under a second now covering our top 3.
Yeah, it's staying quite tight in this one so far. Obviously just on lap number 2 here, but keeping fiercely close together. Here we see a battle further back though. Kenny Schmid, Brian Bruzzi. We saw them coming to blows at the end of race number 1. What will happen here in race number 2 right now? Schmid has the advantage, and he has the toe of Rob Hubrecht, so it'll be tougher for Bruzzi to get the job done. But it looks like he's got a decent run out of Oak Tree. Can he make something happen by the time they get to Roller Coaster? He's right close behind Schmid, pops out to the left, and Schmid not really defending here because they've still got a decent way to go until they get to the corner. Schmid trying to hang it around the outside. It's difficult to do, but he manages to hold him off. That's a really excellent defensive maneuver from Kenny Schmid. It's so easy to miss your braking point there and take it too deep, but Kenny Schmid able to hold off Bruzzi for now.
A great piece of defensive work from Schmid, is see Zavadil right now coming under pressure from Kelderman, who's looking for a, well, just getting into the mirrors. Zavadil there, just trying to distract him and put him off his braking markers. And we expect to see over the next few laps Kelderman really turning up the screw and dialing that pressure up to the absolute maximum onto the back of Zavadil and just trying to force the mistake out of him, because I feel like it's probably going to be the most likely way that Kelderman's going to get past Zavadil right now.
It certainly is, and remember, of course, that the Colorado Karting Tour doesn't pay points for the heat races, so this is the one that counts when it comes to the championship. Kelderman finished behind Zavadil in race number 1, but if he wants to close that gap in the championship, he's got to make something happen here in race number 2. And he kept pace with Lawrence through all of race number 1. So he's definitely not, being left in the dust here. And has got a really good run into Oak Tree, actually. The problem he has at the moment is that Zavadil's going to have that tow from Lukens up ahead. So no real way to tow past the fellow McLaren of Zavadil. Here we see Kenny Schmid, who's dropped back a few places now behind both Brucey and McLaughlin, being told he had an off track somewhere. So that is costly for Kenny, as he now sits in 8th place. Still the highest running of the Porsches, as he looks to make a position back on McLaughlin here. With Michael Keltner watching closely, Kenny gets the job done. Can he get it stopped though? Yes, he does, and McLaughlin not going to be able to make something happen. So good job by Kenny to get back up into 7th place. But he's now a little ways behind Brucey and Hubrex up ahead. It's going to be tough to track down.
It was interesting stuff there from Schmid, just watching his lines. Obviously, he ran it in deep. However, what he was able to do, where he had to maneuver the car back across the track just to make the corner, it made the car about as wide as possible, and it killed off any momentum for it to stop a cutback from McLaughlin and leaving himself vulnerable from that. And he saw that McLaughlin just had to get onto the brakes, just get back out of it a bit. And that's what's allowed Schmid to keep hold of that 7th place for now, prevent the further fight back from the McLaren. But like these three getting even closer. I mean, about 3 laps ago, it was about a second covering all 3 of them. Previous lap, 9 tenths. We're now down to 8 tenths covering our top 3. And Kelderman is definitely applying the pressure onto the back of Zavadil. And the gap between Lucas and Zavadil is remained pretty stagnant and stable at around about 6 tenths of a second since the start of the race.
Yeah, quite a different look to race number 1, where we saw Lukens pulling away quite handily. This gap has maintained steady across all 3 of these top 3 drivers, as you mentioned, Tim. And really, Floyd Kerr is not all that far behind either. You can see him cresting the hill in the Aston Martin. He's certainly not out of touch with these top 3. So certainly a bit closer here in the early stages of race number 2. 30 minutes here. They would have been halfway through a heat race now, but still a good 3/4 of the race to go here in the feature. So lots of time still for moves to happen, but at the moment it seems like those top 3 really have quite similar pace.
It doesn't, as you mentioned, Kerr just able to keep in a bit of contact with them, and it'll be interesting as the race progresses. And clearly these 3 up front, nobody's showing their cards early on, and just maintaining similar sorts of gaps between one another. Having said that, Kelderman's just dropped a little bit off the back of Zavadil by about 2 to 3 tenths right now. And
yeah, I'm not sure, Tim, if that's so much Kelderman dropping back as it is Lawrence applying the pressure heavily to Bruce Lukens. He's been chomping at the back of that McLaren up ahead for much of the first sector on the track. So I don't think Kelderman slowed down any. I think Lawrence Zavadil has just started to mount the pressure a little heavily on race leader Lukens.
Yeah, I think, well, looking at how the tactics are being played out right now, Tyler, it looks like I think Zavadil is maybe going to look for move in the latter stages of the race, and clearly, I think these two out front probably would have hoped to be able to pull a bit more of a gap over Kelderman than what they currently have, and I said that Kelderman's doing a cracking job of staying right in touch with them, and like I say, I think the gloves will definitely come off into the latter stages of the race, but I mean, we've only just coming up to a third of race distance completed, and still everything very much to play for. But having said that, one thing that has happened is they've dropped the Aston of Floyd Kerr, currently occupying 4th place. That gap is now out to 2.6 seconds between him and our lead group of 3.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see the lap times as they come through here. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see some very quick laps from those top 3, because you're absolutely right. They have dropped Floyd Kerr, and no one did their quickest lap of the race in those top 3, but they were all considerably quicker than the Aston of Floyd Kerr, and really not that far off their best laps at all. I mean, you know, 0.2 apiece. Quickest driver of the race so far is Ezra Kelderman with a 55.3 compared to, you know, the distant 55.4s of the top 2.
That's it. Well, just seeing it there, the aftermath of it. Keltner getting past McLaughlin. Porsche now up into 8th place, and McLaughlin, after that initial good, strong early pace, now maybe starting to suffer a little bit against the 2 Porsches ahead of him with Schmid and Keltner.
Yeah, it just seems like McLaughlin's fallen off a bit. You know, new to the championship and very possibly new to these cars as well. So it could well be that he's just, you know, struggling to maintain it over a race distance. I think that was Armand Gevorkian sitting off the track in the run-up to Oak Tree as we saw Hubrex and Bruzzi go by. Not sure what's happened to Armand there.
Just come off the... I'm just having a bit of a look right now. He's not had the best of times here at VIR, and like you say, it was him who just come off the track there and now finds himself a lap down. And wow, ever since he had that off track earlier in race 1, it just seems to be going from bad to worse right now for Armand Gevorkian in the Porsche.
It's going quite well at the front though. Bruce Lucan still with a tiny gap over Lawrence Zavadil. Really, in the grand scheme of things, quarter of a second is nothing in these rapid GT4 cars as Zavadil continues to apply the pressure to the back of that McLaren, with Kelderman ready to pick up the pieces should these two come to blows. But at the moment, everyone keeping it nice and tidy as they work their way through the first sector here at VIR, a very technical part of the track here. Lots of tight, you know, 90-ish degree left and right handers. Can be very easy to put a wheel off and lose significant time, but these drivers are driving it expertly and continuing to pace this field quite rapidly.
They are. I mean, on the last lap alone, pulling out another second over Floyd Kerr in the Aston Martin in 4th place. Gulf starting to emerge, and Kerr fully cut adrift from our lead 3 McLarens. And having said that though, Kerr, a sizable gap to, can't see right on screen right now, Rob Hubrex, and he's got Brian Bruzzi closing in on him bit by bit.
Yeah, Bruzzi was a little bit closer actually a lap ago. I wondered if something had happened to Bruzzi there, but no, he's still decently within range of Rob Hubrex. It looks like Rob's just picked up the pace a little bit. It was a pretty good last lap for Hubrex in 5th there, dipping into the 56s. But yeah, there you see. Actually, Bruzzi was quicker that last lap, so clearly Rob pulled a bit of a gap in the first sector there. As, ooh, something's happened again to James, who we saw spin earlier on, dropping once again and still showing off track. It's Oak Tree again, so clearly that Aston Martin for Mike James having some trouble at Oak Tree.
It looks like he's had a bit of a trip into the barrier as well, based on the way that bonnet has got some new and certainly not improved panel gaps in around of it, and it's shaking around, and possibly even maybe a bit of suspension or steering damage for James. And I'd be absolutely gutted by that one as starts to approach onto half race distance now, and These three are just getting closer and closer, bit by bit. Now only 7 attempts covering our top 3.
Yeah, they really can't be separated, this group. And, you know, we asked at the conclusion of race 1, was anyone going to have anything for Bruce Lukens? And clearly, whatever Zavadil and Kelderman were missing in race number 1, they have found for race number 2, because they've been hounding Bruce Lukens this whole race, and it doesn't look like they're going to be letting up anytime soon.
Credit to Lukens as well. He has just mopped up the pressure. It's like he's out for a nice leisurely Sunday drive and not fazed by it whatsoever. Despite having Zavadil, certainly for the last 4 or 5 laps, inches from his bumper at times.
Yeah, obviously these two practice together, so you'd imagine they know each other's driving tendencies, and Lukens not phased by the pressure that Lawrence Zavadil is applying, but Zavadil's got a good run as they head to roller coaster. Not enough to stick it up the inside, but enough that, you know, if he gets a similar run, maybe in minute 25 of the race rather than minute 15, you might think about making something happen there.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how these three play this one out here at VIR, and I think you start to see, you know, from Lukens, he's certainly down the back straight. He's starting to move around a little bit just to break the slipstream between himself and Zavadil behind. But wow, I'm sure, you know, your blanket's been well and truly stolen, because it's been used to throw over the 3 of these. Oh no, there's a spin. That's Lukens gone.
Oh my goodness, so the pressure finally coming to Bruce Lukens as he loses it through turn number 2. What happened there? Oh, what a shame for race leader Bruce Lukens, who had been just doing a tremendous job. Yeah, well, we've talked about how unforgiving this circuit is, and you're absolutely right. Just barely dips those right sides into the grass. And just like that, a double race win thrown out the window for Bruce Lukens. And this race falls into the hands of Lawrence Zavadil and Ezra Kelderman. But what a shame. Oh, and now Zavadil's wide.
Oh.
Zavadil's wide, and Ezra Kelderman takes the lead. My goodness, what somebody's put oil on the track or something, as our top 2 both have off-track moments on the same lap. And Ezra Kelderman suddenly finds himself staked to a 2.5-second lead. Wow, I'm not sure what to say. I mean, maybe Zavadil just thinking, you know, it's now time to get the hammer down, but just run it in too deep. Yeah, gets on the grass, the exit of Oak Tree, and there you see Ezra Kelderman disappearing in the distance. So the complexion of this race has changed immediately in the span of 1 lap here. Ezra Kelderman with a chance to make a dent in Lawrence Zavadil's championship chances. I think well worth noting in his debut in the championship, as things stand for right now, Floyd Kerr will get the Aston Martin onto the podium in what is, well, you can see from the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen, all the car manufacturer logos. The front end of the field has just been dominated by the McLarens, and he's been a shining light in amongst them. And wow, I think maybe it'd just be a little bit gutted that he dropped off the back of that front 3, because quite possibly if he hadn't have done, he'd be past Zavadil. Yeah, certainly, but you can't, you know, fault yourself too much. You know, your pace is your pace. Here, though, we see the recovering Bruce Lukens heavily applying the pressure to Brian Bruxy here, with Rob Hubrechts not too far ahead either. So Lukens isn't done yet. We know he is absolutely rapid around here. He'll want to see if he can recover to maybe a podium position, though. That'll be a tall order to close that gap to Floyd Kerr and get by all 3 of these guys in the span of just about 11 minutes to go. There's still plenty to play for. I mean, we've got
the majority of race 1, if you look at it that way, you know, still remaining here in race 2. It's going to be interesting to see what Lukens can do to pull his way back up through the field. I mean, Bruzy and Hubrex, well, you can see as we ride on board with Lukens right now, visually only just in front of them, and we know we've seen and know the pace that Lukens has got. And it'd be interesting to see, you know, when he looks to pick his moves and whether Hubrex and Bruzy can also fend off Lukens in these second half of the race.
Yes, lots still to come. Plenty of racing to go, and we saw how quickly things can change around here. It really, you know, highlights how treacherous this track can be, and how costly just a little clip of the grass can be for these drivers. It could easily happen to any one of these, you know, front runners in the closing stages of this race. So nobody certainly is safe by any stretch of the imagination. And you know, you see the gap at the top closing as well. Zavadil is not done at all. He doesn't want to see that championship lead shrunk, which would certainly be possible as it stands right now. It was a 10-point lead coming into it, but of course the points difference from first to second, 7 points, so that would be, as it stands, a 3-point gap, Zavadil over Kelderman. So very important positions to play for here, not just for the race win, but looking at the championship as a whole and those awesome potential prizes available to these drivers. There's a lot at stake here.
Most certainly is, and you know, as the late great Murray Walker had said, yeah, catching is one thing, passing someone is something completely different altogether. And Zavadil currently displaying pace to be able to get, you know, catch up onto the back of Kelderman. But as you said, with those amazing prizes up for grabs, you can bet your bottom dollar that Kelderman is going to make his McLaren about as wide as the track to prevent him getting past as well. Here you go. Lukens is going to get past Bruzy surely here.
Well, and this battle certainly illustrates that point as well, because we know Bruce Lukens has race-winning pace here, and Brian Bruzy really has not shown that pace at all. But you know, Lukens got to the back of Bruzy, what, 3-4 laps ago, and now, just finally now, he's able to make the pass. So you're absolutely spot on there, Tim. It's not a done deal, even if Zavadil is able to get to Ezra Kelderman. Those two drivers plenty quick, and there's just not a ton of places to pass around VIR.
As you say, that the gap is now down to 8 tenths. It dips into the 7 tenths between Kelderman and Zavadil. We enter inside, remaining just coming up to 7.5 minutes left here at VIR. As a mistake there from Kelderman. He runs wide, but he's going to get away with it. Well, looks the thing, Siler.
Yeah, that's the part of Oak Tree that you want to run wide on the run-up, not what Lawrence Zavadil did. And actually, Kelderman manages to stretch the gap a little bit through Oak Tree. So clearly, Kelderman pushing that McLaren to its limit and doing what he can to maintain this race lead. He is on a charge here as we head towards the waning minutes of this race. You know Lawrence Zavadil's quick. You know he's going to put the pressure on. And honestly, one of the toughest things to do when you've been following somebody for a while is to get back into a rhythm on your own. Oh, no! Side-to-side contact there between Bruce Lukens and Rob Hubrex. Looked to me like they were coming into the roller coaster side by side. Hard to tell where the room was and if, you know, who did or didn't leave the space, but we'll get a replay here to see what happened there, but that's a shame. So Lukens pulls to the right of Hubrex. Hubrex clearly didn't want Lukens trying this move here, and just a little bit of contact there. It's really tough to see from that angle who, you know, did Lukens have any room to his right, or was that just a case of two cars racing for the same piece of track. We'll see if we can get another replay here. But man, that's a shame for Rob Hubrex, who's had a tough season following up on his championship winning run last time out. Yeah, there's just no space for Lukens there, and Rob's just trying to make the corner as well, but Lukens was certainly alongside, and that's just a tough one there, and a tough break for Rob Hubrex. But we carry on. The battle for the lead has closed up dramatically, less than half a second now between Ezra Kelderman and Lawrence Zavadil, and we're looking at 2 or 3 laps after this one, so not much time at all to make this move stick for Lawrence Zavadil. Ezra Kelderman will be counting those minutes down as quickly as he can, but that's one passing zone blocked off there. It really just doesn't seem like Lawrence Zavadil has the straight line speed advantage even in the toe to make something happen without Kelderman making a mistake. So really what Ezra needs to do here is make sure he gets the runs onto the straight as perfectly as he can, just to stave off that run down the straights from Lawrence Zavadil. And it looks like he's got a good run. Takes a bit of a defensive line here into turn number 1. That's what you've got to do. But Zavadil looking to maybe cross over. Horseshoe too long of a corner, I think, for that to happen, and Kelderman staves off another passing opportunity as we're looking at, I believe, 3 laps to go, including this one.
And right now, Kelderman is really drive McLaren out of his skin and to keep ahead of Zavadil, who's got the momentum with him. However, does he have enough in the bag to pull his car alongside enough to get the move done on Kelderman? Wow, that's what's going to be the interesting part. I mean, we saw Zavadil how, he was able to close up onto the back of Lukens, but not able to quite get the move done. I mean, that will be a part of the story where, obviously, early stages of the race. However, it's all about the drag out of Oak Tree. Who's going to get it? And I'm not sure if it's me, Tyler, but that initially looked like Kelderman was actually getting away from Zavadil as well. Zavadil, here he comes.
Now, what happens here, because this is pretty much the same situation we saw with Hubrex and Lukens, and Zavadil knows he's got a couple more laps to do it, and knows surely what happened to Lukens there, so backs out of that one. And
I think that was maybe a bit of a test run, just to see what Kelderman would do approaching into it.
I think you're spot on there, Tim, but it might not need to matter here, as Zavadil, has a great run down the start, finish straight, heading into Horseshoe turn 1. Kelderman obviously has the inside line here, but Zavadil trying to make it stick, and if he can, he'll have the inside line for the next corner. They're still side by side. Still side by side. This is a really tight, twisty track, and now Kelderman just dipping those wheels off, but manages to keep it under him. And Zavadil has the race lead. My goodness, 2 laps remain for these drivers. Does Kelderman have anything in the tank to try and grab that position back from Lawrence Zavadil?
I mean, you could say that actually Kelderman is now in the stronger position potentially, because he's got Zavadil in front of him. He can turn up the pressure on him, and equally, he's going to be able to utilize that slipstream along the back straight to get the move done. So coming into these last stages, especially onto the last lap, could actually, in a unique way, providing he can stay right behind him, it could be the power play for Kelderman right now.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I feel like I still want to have the...
I'm straws in, Tyler, for him.
I feel like I'd still prefer to have the race lead, but obviously Kelderman's shown some really great pace through the race today, and all it takes is a little slip up from Lawrence Zavadil, and Kelderman is right there. but I do think it's going to take a mistake from Zavadil. I think it's going to be incredibly tough for Ezra Kelderman to make a pass happen here with 1 lap to go. They round the final corner, and Kelderman is just not as close as Zavadil was when he made the move happen into turn 1 last time around. There is the white flag, so Zavadil doing what he can. And where we were talking, Kelderman could really close the championship picture here. This will be good for Zavadil to stretch that gap and just give himself a little more buffer heading into Sebring if he can pull this one off. Kelderman was late on the brakes into turn 1 and closed in just a little bit. But as we know, not too many opportunities to make a move happen here. And Kelderman needs to maximize his run into those passing zones.
Kelderman's going to give this a good go. He's closer than what he was on the last lap, and coming down to 0.2 of a second. And Kelderman's going to give this all and some more. Wow, I mean, literally hardly anything separating these two on the run down to Oak Tree. Zavadil just getting a slightly better run out this last stage here. But who's going to get the best exit? That's what it's all about.
Oh, that's wide. That's wide. I saw that one coming. Kelderman was really pushing it there. He knew this run out of Oak Tree was his last chance, and well, we've seen it slip away barring major mistake from Zavadil, but man, what a run from Kelderman to just try and apply the pressure Zavadil into a mistake, and what a battle we've seen today. This has been another absolutely tremendous race from the Colorado Karting Tour. And whichever one of these two drivers crosses the finish line first, it's going to be well earned, and I think they'll be smiling after that one.
It's been another absolutely classic battle between these two. Well, they come to take the checkered flag.
Indeed they do, and Lawrence Zavadil will stretch his championship lead with a race win over main rival Ezra Kelderman. Floyd Kerr gives the Aston Martin a podium on debut here. And this is the battle for 6th place. Kelderman's got a good run here, but the finish line, I think, yeah, just a bit too far up the straight, not able to get it past Schmid for 6th place there. But a good run at the end from Keltner. This battle also raging till the end. Didn't get to see much of it because of the lead battle we had going on, but Peterson's got a run here on Michael Herring. He's going to get him. As they cross the line, it was Peterson from Herring by the slimmest of margins. Wow, what exciting battles all the way through the field at VIR of all places. It's a wonderful track to drive, but it can be rather hit and miss for racing, but we have seen some really tremendous battles all throughout the field today.
Peterson in the Aston nipping the Porsche of Herring by 0.02 of a second at the line. I mean, that's less than a blink of an eye to finish that far apart. It's absolutely amazing stuff from Peterson, the run he got off the final corner. And wow, it just shows that you need to keep pushing right until the very end, because you never know what may happen.
Certainly true. We just got a couple more cars to cycle through across the line. Here is Mike James, and then it'll be Mark Sherman rounding out the lead lap finishers there in his Porsche. And we will get the results to you. But my, oh my, what a race we have seen. Really fantastic. And can't wait to talk to the drivers after that one. There are your race results. Lawrence Zavadil wins again from Ezra Kelderman. We mentioned Floyd Kerr rounding out the podium ahead of the recovering Bruce Lukens. A real shame for Bruce after winning the heat race, not able to convert it in the feature, but still a solid 4th place. Then it's Brian Bruzzi, Kenny Schmid, Michael Keltner in 7th. Rob Hubrechts, after that unfortunate contact with Bruce, finishes in 8th. Ryan McLaughlin in 9th. Zach Peterson 10th. Michael Herring in 11th. Mark Malsum in 12th. Aaron Botnick 13th, Danny Lopez in 14th, Mike James 15th, Mark Sherman 16th, Ben Jolly in 17th, Armand Gavorkian 18th, and Rob Holubar left this race early in 19th. We've got several drivers waiting to talk to us, so I am going to grab our feature race winner, Lawrence Avadil.
Hey guys.
Man, Lawrence, what a tremendous battle you had there with Ezra Kelderman and Bruce Lukens for quite a while there. You had us on the edge of our seat, I think it's safe to say, for much of that race. Really, tale of two halves, I think, steadily applying the pressure to Bruce through the first half, and then the second half, after you made your mistake there, after Bruce made his mistake, the recovery to get past Ezra and claim the race win. What a tremendous race. What was it like from the driver's seat?
Oh yeah, no kidding. I was really applying the pressure on Bruce. I knew Bruce seems to be a little bit prone to pressure, so I was just like, if I can just run as close as I possibly can to him, I will. He'll eventually make a mistake, and I'll go right by. And so I planned that out, and then after he spun there, I was like, all right, it's absolute push time, and I made a little slight miscalculation going into Oak Tree, and then from there it was just like, all right, now I really have to get my head down and push. So, and luckily I was able to catch back up.
Yeah, for sure, and execute a fantastic pass on Ezra Kelderman. That really took quite a few turns to set up. We saw you testing the waters at the end of the back straight, and then it wasn't until well into the first sector that you actually got by. That was quite a lengthy pass maneuver.
Oh yeah, him having the inside line there, I was like, there's no real way that I'm gonna get by here. So I knew I just had to brake late and hope to hold the outside line and then wait for turn 3, and that's where it happened.
Really tremendous. Yeah, we obviously talked to you after Barber. You had mentioned considering driving the McLaren there, but hadn't made the switch then. You have now. What were the impressions of the new car, and did it take a little adjusting to, or was it were you a quick learner?
I mean, it feels pretty similar to the Porsche. It's just a lot stiffer, and that's kind of what I like about it over these next couple of tracks. Well, this track and then the finale at Sebring. Specifically Sebring, the Porsche, the traction control on that car just kills it around there. So the traction control on this car is way less intrusive. So I knew I wanted to make the switch, and I was testing this car versus the Porsche here, and this car was a good half second faster. So it's just like it's now or never.
Awesome. Well, you'll head into Sebring with a championship lead and looking to secure one of those awesome prizes on offer, but still one race to go, so we'll see how it all plays out there. But is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out before we let you go here tonight?
Absolutely. Shout out to my family who's watching, and shout out to I want to give a shout out to VRS and Pascalis Garkis. I got a couple of coaching sessions in with him, and he's really helped me out in figuring out some of my errors and everything, and I can't recommend doing that enough.
Fantastic. Well, obviously, VRS big supporters of us here at Apex Racing TV, so we're happy to hear that on their behalf, and I'm sure they'll get that passed along to him. But great to have you, Lawrence, as always, and congratulations on yet another win here in the Colorado Karting Tour.
Hey, thanks, guys.
With that, Tim, I am going to grab feature race runner-up for you, Ezra Kelderman.
Hi, guys.
Ezra, wow, what a race that was, and a real mixed bag for you in terms of emotions that must have been going through the cockpit.
Yeah, I didn't expect. Well, there's a few things. I didn't expect the track temps to be that high, so practice was a wash. And I thought Bruce and Lawrence would just run away, and then I was like, well, I'll just make sure I can get third. But we stayed right with each other, and the draft was pretty important. And yeah, I don't know what happened to Bruce exactly. There were a couple mistakes up there. I took advantage, and then it was mind games from there on out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm sure it's obviously disappointing that you didn't get the pass done on track, as it were. But I mean, my golly, you're definitely going to take those opportunities when they were presented to you. I mean, was it sort of a sense of relief and excitement when you saw both Lukens and Zavadil fall off the track in front of you?
It was, to a degree. It really came down to watching the relative to see how far Lawrence was going to bump back, because he's faster than me, he's going to make less mistakes. So it came down to how much time I have left and how many seconds back is he and can I hold it. And I think if I overdrove the car at the end, and I think if I had kept it a bit cleaner and just did what I was doing, may have had a chance. But yeah, just a couple. I didn't defend. I think it was turn 3 very well, and then cooked it a little too hard by the oak tree on that last lap, because I was going to make one more run at him. But yeah, that was it.
Yeah, it seemed like you were just setting him up and just trying to get that perfectly run, and then that slight mistake where you were pushing so hard, like you say, it just ended up frustrating for us as sat in the commentary booth, trying to think how it felt for yourself. And well, yeah, they just obviously we watched as the time disappeared. I mean, leading up to that though, I mean, you saying you were pushing incredibly hard and overdriving the car. Were the tyres starting to go away from you where you'd overheated them, or were they feeling relatively okay leading up to that moment?
I mean, from the get-go, the track was so hot. I think it was 125 or something up there. So they felt like they were trash in the beginning. But yeah, towards those last, I would say 3 or 4 laps, I could tell the difference. I was pushing the car too hard, hopping off the curbs, getting a wheel spin. And then I almost bumped my brake bias back just to roll the dice on that to see if I could get a little more rotation. But yeah, they were just too hot, and I just couldn't defend him in the end.
Let's see, we head to Sebring for the next round. How are you feeling about that one?
It'll be interesting. I really don't like Sebring, so I think I just need to keep it clean, watch out for all the bumps in the McLaren. It's gonna be interesting to see how that car does there, but it does well in the fast turns. So I think if I can just calm down, find some consistency, we'll see what happens.
Definitely. Before we let you go, anyone you want to give a shout out to at all?
Yeah, I mean, as always, thanks to you guys for the commentary and the great video. And yeah, looking forward to this last race, and wishing everyone luck.
No problem at all. That's our runner-up here, Ezra Kelderman. He finished second in the McLaren.
And we've got one more driver to talk to tonight, and that is the driver who rounded out the podium of the feature race, Floyd Kerr. How's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
We are doing, we're doing well, Floyd. Really a bit of a quiet race for you, I guess, there in the feature. Just, we saw you keeping pace with the McLaren trio early on. It seemed like you fell back a little bit as the race progressed, but solid pace for that first run in the Aston Martin.
Yeah, it was really just about keeping the consistency and not making mistakes, because definitely hard to fall behind the top 3 and still keep the motivation to stay ahead when I can't fight with them, but definitely pulled through with mistakes and watching out for that for the other cars, but I'd say it went pretty well.
It certainly did, yeah, and you did benefit from some of those mistakes up ahead, and ended up on the podium here. But looking ahead to the final round at Sebring, don't know if you've driven the Aston Martin there yet, but is that a track that generally you look forward to?
Yeah, it was definitely I guess, an experience driving the Aston at this track, but I think it'll do well at Sebring. I've yet to drive it at Sebring, but I've put in quite a bit of laps there. Couple laps there recently. So I think the Aston will handle pretty well. I'm looking forward to that round.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing you there as well, seeing if you can repeat a podium performance. But before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
I'd like to give a shout out to my family and friends, because as I'm racing down here, my family are watching the stream upstairs, and friends that are my family shares the stream with their friends, and definitely thank you guys as well for the excellent commentating.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you and have everybody watching. And we look forward to seeing what you can do at Sebring. But for now, thanks for joining us and congratulations on your podium finish. Floyd Kerr, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, that will just about do it for us here as far as Apex Racing TV is concerned with the Colorado Karting Tour Round 6 at Virginia International Raceway. As we've mentioned a few times, we head next week to Sebring for the series finale of the Colorado Karting Tour iRacing Winter Series. But if you want some racing to watch in the meantime, look no further than Apex Racing TV. We've got some excellent racing coming up for you in the next few days. Tomorrow we've got the ARL Mazda Cup for you. That'll be round 8 at Oran Park. And tomorrow night, for those of you in the US, we've got the Ricmotech Classic Sprint Series, round 7 at Knock Hill. Then Tuesday night, for those of you in the US, we've got Ray Esports Racing League, round 3 at Sonoma. So lots of great racing coming up for you here on Apex Racing TV. If you are interested in any of those or just want to catch more of the Colorado Karting Tour, make sure you subscribe to our channel here on Apex Racing TV on YouTube. And go ahead and follow us on your favorite social media platform at Apex Racing TV. And you'll never miss any of the awesome races that we put on. But for now, for myself, for Tim, and for the tremendous Jonathan Grabowski, who's been running production and who I'm pretty sure I failed to mention at the outset of the broadcast, thank you so much for joining us, everybody, and we hope to see you next time.